Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, broadcasting on Channels Television, live from Lagos. Here's a reminder of our main story. Suspected Boko Haram militants throw bombs at houses and open fire on fleeing residents of Shani town in Borno State, Nigeria's northeast region. A frantic effort is underway to treat those lucky to escape death from the blasts at the Kanu Mosque in hospitals. Health Workers Union directs its members to return to duty to save lives of the Kanu bombing victims. And the Kabul police chief quits after an attack on foreigners in Afghanistan. Internally displaced persons in Adamawa State, northeast Nigeria, have re-echoed their desire to return home, despite being fed and accommodated by the government and corporate organizations in various camps. The internally displaced persons called on the federal government to come to their rescue by dislodging the sect members to enable them return home.
This is what life is like for these internally displaced persons. They fled their homes with little or no belongings in the wake of increased attacks by insurgents and now have to call this makeshift camp their home. They are huddled together, the men on one side and the women and children on another, daily contemplating how long this nightmare would end. But they may be in for a long wait, as the war on terrorism is far from over. These internally displaced persons are from Mubi, Madagali, Askira Uba, Bama, Goza, among other localities in the three troubled states of Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe states. They are fed up with staying outside their homes and call for a radical approach to tackling Boko Haram so that they can return home.
Very soon, as His Excellency said, they are doing what they call mop-up in Mubi, being one of the second largest cities we have in Adamawa State, that the people will soon, by the grace of God, go back to their respective houses.
While appreciating the efforts of government, NGOs and individuals for coming to their aid, the IDPs call for strict monitoring of the distribution of items supplied to their members.
It's not going straight the way it's supposed to be. There are names that are being given or submitted to government to help, but it's not reaching out.
However, the state governor says his administration would continue to do all it can to provide relief materials to the internally displaced persons in the camps.
At the height of this, the number of people in the IDP camp was about 35,000. In the IDP camps duly identified. Now, but there are over 100,000 people in over 2,000 households who are not in the IDP camps, you know. And what I did this afternoon was to commission the distribution of the over 75,000 food items, rice and all this stuff provided by the federal government and supplemented by the state.
Governor Ngilari also said his administration has liaised with the Nigerian embassy in Cameroon to repatriate some IDPs that moved to Cameroon, as there are camps to accommodate them in Nigeria.
As the Adamawa state government in Nigeria's troubled northeast region maintain a 24-hour curfew, it hopes that this action will assist security operatives to carry out mop-up operations in the state. Governor Bala Ngilari also told Channels Television that the state of emergency in the troubled northeast states of Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe states gives security operatives the constitutional backing to carry out meaningful operations that will restore peace in the affected areas.
Under the Constitution, a governor has power to call for a state of to call on Mr. President to declare a state of emergency in a particular local government or even in his state. You know, people should get to know this constitutional provision. Now, for us, I've said and I repeat, for now, we cannot do without this state of emergency. there are obvious reasons why we need to have state of emergency. When there is state of emergency, for example, fundamental human rights are provided for under the Constitution become suspended. Now imagine a case, a classical case I'll give you is a situation where upon receipt of information, the security operative will get to know that X person who lives in a particular place inside the town harbors people who are suspected to be insurgents, or a catch of arms and ammunition are kept in that house. If there's no state of emergency, there's no way the police or security operatives can go to the house and upon the receipt of the information, deal with the matter. But while there is state of emergency and the fundamental rights stand suspended, it doesn't require a warrant. You don't need to go to court to get a warrant to go and search. You simply storm the place and get the job done. You probably get the insurgent or get the ammunition before they are relocated or before they flee.
Bala Ngilari, Adamawa State Governor. More groups and institutions have come together to fashion out a conflict resolution strategy for affected persons in the 3 states under the state of emergency. Part of these efforts is a regional peace conference under the auspices of the Adamawa Peacemakers Initiative and civil society groups to brainstorm on how to achieve peace in the troubled Northeast.
The insecurity in the troubled north region of Nigeria remains a great concern locally and internationally. Residents in the 3 most affected states persistently say they are lovers of peace, but unfortunately, their communities have become a hotbed of violence. This situation has prompted several interventions. A regional peace conference which attracted about 100 people from these states, as well as stakeholders from the academia and civil liberty members, was put together to strategize more ways of tackling the menace. Here, participants shared experiences and disclosed efforts made so far to help victims.
Well, we are reaching about 207,000 IDPs now and supporting them with relief material, and we've been doing that for the past 3 months. The questions we are asking are very pertinent. What causes conflict? How do you stop conflict? And the prioritization of this, because we know that this is not going to be a short-term issue. It's something that has long-term ramifications. So when we bring think tanks together, ideas are builders. We hope that people will be able to build and make this better.
Mubi has been recaptured, and all we are doing is doing some mopping up operation. So people should begin to think of how to come back home. And home is home. Home is sweet home. If there are matters that will endanger life, we will tell them it's not safe to come.
The peace conference also introduced the basics of ICT to some of the victims of terrorism.
This morning I talked to a woman who was in that marketplace in Mubi when the bomb went off. And she drove all the way here. It took her 12 hours to drive because she's desperately seeking peace. As one of our members said last night, we're obsessed with peace. Because if you don't have peace and security, you can't proceed with development.
There has been growing call by the government to the international community to help strengthen the posture of Nigeria in the fight against terrorism. But how much result this has yielded so far remains the big question.
Officers of the Nigerian Navy have raided suspected pipeline vandals' hideouts in the Abuleoba, Maba Island, Aripo area in Lagos, impounding several kegs filled with premium motor spirit. The raid is part of an ongoing operation initiated by the flag officer commanding Western Naval Command, Rear Admiral Samuel Alade. According to the leader of the naval team, Commodore Tekemo Ikoli, 5 of the pipeline vandals, including their leader, were killed in a gun battle with the Navy during a routine patrol at Abuleoba. 50 others were arrested, while the Navy recovered 200,000 gallons of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, and destroyed 50 wooden boats belonging to the vandals. Naval authorities have assured Lagos residents that the operations are a response to a new dimension of the threat and they should not panic. To politics, Kwara State Governor Abdul Fattah Ahmed has been cleared by the national leadership of the All Progressives Congress to run for a second term. Also cleared is the senator representing Kwara Central, Dr. Bukola Saraki, to seek another term in the National Assembly. The two leaders were screened by a committee led by former Osun State Governor Olagunsoye Oyinlola in Ngilari, the state capital. Displaying their certificates of clearance after the process, they promised to continue offering services that will impact positively on the lives of citizens.
Governor Abdul Fattah Ahmed arrived at the party secretariat accompanied by vocal supporters for the screening. As he is ushered into the screening room, it's obvious that it will not be an open-door affair and the doors are shut. Inside, Governor Ahmed faces the screening committee led by former Osun State Governor Olagunsoye Oyinlola. And after the question and answer session, he is certified fit to contest again on the APC platform. Then he's out in the sun into the waiting arms of the elated supporters. The Kwara State Governor talks about his plans if elected for a second term of office.
We know that it's about resource availability, resource planning, resource allocation, and impact on the people of Kwara State, which we have been demonstrating, and I'm sure you would not be able to fault us on those areas. To the extent that the whole rest in the hands of our national government, but we'll do the best for Kwara State.
Also facing the APC screening committee is the senator representing Kwara Central, Dr. Bukola Saraki. Is also cleared to contest for another term in the National Assembly.
I'm happy to see things are moving smoothly and organized, rancor-free. There's no violence, there's no chasing people around. We don't have any disorder in this place. Everything is free, you can see it. So that's always the difference between us and the other party.
With the initial hurdles crossed, the two most influential Kwara State politicians are set for the next phase, ultimately leading up to the contest in the 2015 polls.
And as the Kwara State incumbent governor and the senator representing Kwara Central gets the nod to recontest, the former Minister of State for Niger Delta Affairs and a governorship aspirant in Benue State, Dr. Sam Ode, has promised to fix the basic education sector challenges if elected governor of Benue State. The governorship aspirant of Dr. Sam Ode on the platform of the People's Democratic Party is considered favorable and capable of fixing the infrastructural and social needs of the state among 18 aspirants seeking to replace Governor Gabriel Suswam. While declaring his ambition to be governor come May 2015, he lists education, agriculture, cottage industries, healthcare, and local government reform as key sectors he will use to transform the state.
Former Minister of State for Niger Delta Affairs and governorship aspirant on the platform of the PDP in Benue State arrived at IBB Square for his formal declaration amidst rousing ovation from his supporters. Just as Dr. Sam Ode settled down with party stalwarts, leaders from the three senatorial zones of Benue State brought endorsement messages from their people.
It's time for ZC to present their candidates, and we stand by our own son, Sam Ode. And so people have told me to tell you that you represent our aspiration. Well, Chief. The leaders of the government people have directed me to announce to you people that they have chosen Dr. Sam Ode.
Declaring his intention to be governor of Benue State in 2015, Dr. Sam Ode listed key areas he will focus on in his transformation program.
I have been motivated to offer myself for service as the governor of Benue State on account of both the laid down foundations and the challenges of governance and development. The thematic area of focus are as follows. First, education. The emphasis of our administration will be on the provision of qualitative primary education. This is so because the primary school is the foundation of the educational architecture. Number 2, agriculture. Number 3, healthcare. The centerpiece of our health policy will be built on the provision of a robust primary healthcare delivery. Specifically, the following measures will be embarked upon. 1, the establishment of a specialist hospital that will be built based on public-private partnership model.
Political watchers say Dr. Samuel Day is considered a bridge between the two most dominant tribes in Benue State, that is, the Tiv and Idoba. Hence, the dominant support he seems to be enjoying.
Still ahead on the news at 10, a community in Cross River State which relies on the cultivation of cassava for their popular staple food, locally known as fufu, asks for support to boost production. Join us again.